My name is Mike Coleman. I'm with Sierra Donor Services. I'm very humbled to be a part of this event today. I want to thank you all for coming out today and being a part of this donor recognition ceremony. I'm honored to be here with Chaplain West, and we hope you've enjoyed a few of the refreshments in the back.
So here's how today's ceremony will go. We will spend the next hour and a half honoring the gifts of life that your loved ones so generously gave as organ, eye, and tissue donors. You will meet the people involved in the donation process and hear from the donors, heroes, families, and the transplant recipients. Then we will read the names of our donor heroes for 2023, one at a time. When we call your loved one's name, please stand to acknowledge them by turning your candle on.
Just in terms of housekeeping, if you got any questions or have any needs, look for someone in one of the Sierra Donor Services shirts or myself. And restrooms are in the lobby, men's room on the right, and women's room on the left.
We want you to know that however you're feeling today is perfect. You may feel celebratory or a little sad, and that's perfectly okay. This is a safe space for all of your emotions. This is the only event in the building today. So if you need to step away at any moment, the rest of the union's tables and chairs just outside these doors are available to you. Event staff are available to assist you. If you need anything, just find the folks in the blue shirts.
Today we honor the generous gift of life that your loved ones gave. Although we may not name every single donor by name, today we honor the 171 donor heroes in our region who have saved 442 lives through organ donation and over 13,000 donor heroes who improved thousands of others through tissue donation. Next up, I'd like to introduce you to a friend and colleague of mine, Mr. Michael Clay. He's the Division Director of Family Services.
Good afternoon. I want to start this out, number one, acknowledging our leader, who's not here today, and acknowledging something very obvious in the room, too. I am not Sean Vance like our executive director. I'm a little taller, a little more athletic, a little more hair, and I'm also a Dallas Cowboys fan. So, yeah, there you go. We had a few here. So, so without further ado, I'm humbled to be able to share this day with you as we honor our courageous donors. Our mission at Sierra Donor Services is to save and improve lives through organ, eye, and tissue donation. And we are honored to support donor families in the most tender moments of life. We have an incredible team of dedicated, compassionate individuals committed to honoring our selfless donor heroes and compassionately guiding families through the donation process. We're privileged to be here today to honor and celebrate your loved ones and donor heroes. At our office, we have a beautiful Locks of Legacy memorial wall, which serves as a testament to the tremendous kindness and compassion shown by our organ and tissue donor families. On our memorial wall, we have beautifully engraved locks honoring our donor heroes for their extraordinary generosity. Our Locks of Legacy wall is positioned at the front of our building and serves as a constant reminder to our team and all visitors of our incredibly impactful mission and helps us to keep a constant vehicle for our donor heroes. We have several special guests joining us today who will be sharing their stories and connections to donation. Thank you to those individuals, and also thank you to all the staff and families who made this day come to fruition. The decision to donate life impacts the lives of countless people. We are grateful for all the organ, eye, and tissue donor heroes who registered to donate and whose families courageously said yes to donation in 2023. Thank you again for joining us today, and for the opportunity to celebrate your loved ones, our donor heroes, and our team who's worked incredibly hard to make sure this day remains extra special for you and your family. Hope you enjoy today. Before I pass it on, a little more housekeeping. 4 rules of the day, some rules we want you to follow. We want you to laugh. We want you to think about all those positive memories, the karaoke songs that we talked about earlier, the checks to the grandkids with the encouraging messages to pay tuition and pay for shoes and sneakers. We want you to cry. We want you to acknowledge the impact that our loved ones and our friends and family has had on us. We want you to share. There's some tremendous stories in this room, and we want them to continue to live on. But ultimately, we are part of a very tremendous community. I want you to make a connection with somebody. There was someone that's gone through the same thing you did. There are some beautiful, moving stories in this room. Let's share them, let's make a connection, and let's leave here with a friend and maybe a family member. Right now, I'm going to turn it over back to Chaplain West. Thank you, and let's have an amazing day today.
Thank you. Chaplain Mindy Russell is the executive director of the California Chaplain Corps, and she was not able to attend today. She was here last year, but she sends her love. Locks of Legacy is very dear to her. She was honored to work with many families, including her own family, that were recipients of the gift of life. Thank you for the privilege of sharing an invocation with you and the privilege of asking for a blessing to make transplantation possible and to help families honor their memory of their loved ones. And lastly, to help those who are suffering and perhaps near the end of life who wait and wonder. Please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask a blessing over all that are in attendance. Bless their memory of their loved one who was taken from their midst. In the time of their deepest heartbreak, they had the strength and courage, generosity and kindness to choose life by donating their loved one's organs for the benefit of others. Bring wholeness and healing to their family. May their strength resound through the generations. May their love never cease. Let their gifts serve as a call to others to follow this righteous and beautiful path. Grant your blessings upon all who are touched by transplants, donors, recipients, and families, doctors and nurses, clinicians and administrators, the vast network of professionals and volunteers who dedicate themselves to healing. God of compassion, may these gifts of life become a source of consolation and comfort. In your holiness and grace, amen.
I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Good afternoon, families. I want to share a little bit with you about our Caring for Families program. We have a team of aftercare coordinators, and their role is to support our donor families, to answer questions about your loved one's donation, and they're available. You can call them. They can walk you through the process of correspondence, but they are here solely for your support. I want to tell you also a little bit about our locks and the fences. So you can see that the locks that we have over here of your loved ones and your sentiments are over on the wall. These locks are going to be placed on our fence in front of our office, and our team will see those locks every time they walk in for work, and it reminds them of their purpose and the very important work that we do. You're all invited to come out and see your lock. Call us in advance, and we will put a bow on your lock and have it there for you so it's easy for you to find. I would like to also introduce you to Emma Payne. She's one of our partners, and with her help and her team's help, we've been able to provide even more support to our donor families through text-based grief support. Emma?
Thanks, Michelle. Michelle and I have been working together for years, but have never seen each other in person until last night, so it's really nice to give you a real hug, Michelle. People think that public speaking is nerve-wracking, but that is nothing compared to what you're all doing here right now by showing up. Grief is hard. Showing up in new places when you're grieving is hard. Meeting new people and sitting at a table with people you don't know when you're grieving is hard. So I'm proud of you all for coming. Thank you for coming, and I hope that I'll be able to share a few things here today that will be helpful. So my grief story began when my husband Barry died by suicide. It was my first major grief experience, my first sudden traumatic loss. And I had the experience that I'm sure we've all had, which is everything went upside down. I had, now I look back at it in a different way, but at the time I was shocked by how hard it was physically. I had no idea that grief was going to involve feeling sick, having heart palpitations, not being able to remember anything, not being able to sleep, not being able to eat. You know, I just didn't know that grief was going to be physical, and it was scary. It was physical, and then it was also emotional. It's like all the biggest emotions I'd ever felt could all be happening all at the same time, you know, sadness and anger and guilt and all of those things. So it was emotionally hard, it was physically hard. I discovered that it was behaviorally hard. I'm like, well, I used to run a company, and now I don't know how to tie my shoes. Just the actual day-to-day was so much more difficult than I had understood at the time that it was going to be. So it's hard, and yeah, again, thanks for coming. So back then, I also discovered that grief is hard, and guess what? It's also really hard to get help when you're grieving. It's hard to find support. My friends, a lot of them vanished. They didn't know what to say. They, you know, they cared, but they couldn't figure out how to be with me. I felt very alone. It was difficult to get support, and especially to get expert support from people who really understood grief and knew, in my case particularly, grief after a suicide as well. At that time in my life, I had spent quite a long time, 20 years, using web and mobile technology to do lots of different things, registering young people to vote, for example, helping caregivers to coordinate with each other. So I started a couple years after Barry died kind of fantasizing about what would it look like if I could take all the best grief wisdom in the world, all the best expertise, and build something that would text it right out to people's phones, personalized just for them based on the loss that they have. And so that's what led me to create Grief Coach, the company that I run now, and that is very, very proud to be a DCI partner. The experience of running this company, which I've been doing now since 2018, is so healing, selfishly, so healing for me. It makes me feel as though I'm doing something productive with my loss and my pain, but it's also been this incredible opportunity to spend time with grieving people, tens of thousands of grieving people like you all around the world, and to work with companies like DCI who are as passionate about providing expert grief support as I am. So in my 6 years working in grief and loss, which is not very much compared to a lot of the people I had dinner with last night on the DCI team, I have been able to learn a thing or two about grief. So I thought what I would try to do for just maybe another 4 minutes or so is share some of the things that we've learned from our tens of thousands of grievers, what grief is, what it isn't, what can help, what often doesn't help, and yeah, I hope that some of it can be helpful for you. One of the first things that it seems important to remember is that grief is normal and natural. Sometimes when it's happening to us, certainly when it was happening to me, I felt like it was this abnormal thing, that I was losing my mind, that it was this crazy, unusual experience. And over the years, I realized, no, it's natural, it's normal. A person that we love so much is gone, and it makes sense to feel upside down. It's a natural, normal response to a life-changing experience. So if you're having days where it feels all upside down, it's normal. It's because you love them, you know. I think another thing that's important when we think about grief is to remember that it is different for us all. We can't compare our grief to someone else's. We can't say it's lasting too long or not long enough, or they should be doing this or feeling that, or so on. It's the fact of it is that grief is just different for us all. It's different in duration, intensity, how we express it. I wish that someone had told me back then to let go of any idea that I should be doing it differently or that other people should be feeling different ways. It's a natural, normal experience, but it's also different for all of us, and I think it's helpful to remember that we all just process it differently. For me, grief was very isolating. It's unfortunate that it feels that way, because here we are in a room of hundreds of people with this shared experience, but yet when it's happening, a lot of grieving people feel alone. We have that feeling, no one could possibly understand this, or I don't know how to even express it, or in my case, it was, you know, friends that just didn't know what to say. So sure, it's normal and natural, but man, it can be lonely. So again, I'm so proud that you took the step to come here, because trying, even in the smallest way, to kind of pick away at that loneliness is important, because it is something that lots of us share and understand more than seems possible when you're deep in it yourself. And then my fourth point for the what is grief piece is that it is not at all predictable, and any idea that you have that there are certain stages, you know, there's the myth of the 5 stages of grief, and we think we should be going through it in this particular order. That's not what these were ever invented for. That was the stages of grief are not real. At work with my team at Grief, we have a little booklet of words we're not allowed to use when we send out text messages or when we're talking to grieving people, and one of those words is the word should. You are not, you know, you should be at this next stage. I should be feeling better by now. I should be this or that. There are no stages. Like it or not, it goes like this and all around and back again. So I think that's one of the important things to hold on to as well. So those are my thoughts about what grief is and isn't. And then I'm going to just spend a few minutes talking about what we all really want to know, which is how can I just make it feel a little less hard. One thing I think is to accept that you can feel all kinds of things at once. You know, you can feel guilt at the same time that you can feel forgiveness. You can feel overwhelmed at the same time that you feel joy. If you have a moment today, this week, next week, where this little joyful thing happens and then you push it aside or you feel guilty about it, let that little bit of grief in, let joy in, and take it as a sign that in the future I'm going to feel joy again. Might not feel like it right now, but that little glimpse is okay, and it can sit in companion to all these other things on the left-hand side of the list, right? Feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and everything. So grief can be both those things at once, and just try and let them in as they come. So what can help? You can move it on again. So the thing about this is you're already doing it. You're all here doing the things that there's a field of study called thanatology, which is the study of death, dying, and bereavement. So there's all kinds of experts who've spent decades and decades studying grief. And they would say to do these things on the list and give yourself a little back pat because you're doing them. You're here to acknowledge your loss. Push it to the side or pretend it didn't happen or don't talk about the person anymore. It tends not to work out as well. Finding a way to come here with the photos of the person that you love, to say their name, you're going to have a chance to light your candle is a way to release that grief, right? To connect with other people to see I'm not actually as alone as I feel that I am. So the things that all the experts suggest you do, you're doing by being here. So that's something to feel good about today, no matter how hard it was for you to come. And I already shared about that should word. Try to let go of those stages, let go of what you think it should feel like or how long it would last. Grief is big, it's a big thing. It's a life-changing thing that happens. So if you're doing what I was very good at and convincing yourself that I should be doing this or that, or that I was bad at grieving, try to let that go as soon as you can and just stick with the feelings that you're having. I just have a couple more slides. This is one of my favorites. This is what I wish someone told me when Barry died, right? I'm going along, I'm living my life, and then the death happens. And then I fall into deep grief, which I expect, and that seems like the thing that you would do if your husband dies by suicide, and you grieve. And then years are going, and then I'm grieving more. And then more time is passing along, and I'm like, oh, I'm still grieving. This is going on way longer than I think that it should. And eventually, and this is why I'm lucky, I think, to do the work that I do, that helps here, is eventually you start living this life that actually includes your grief, right? There's not going to be a closure. It's not going to suddenly stop hurting. It's going to hurt less over time. You get better at coping with it, and you bring it into your life story. It is you. The final slide that I have is what I like to repeat to myself. So. And especially since I know that you all lost your people recently. So for me, when Barry died, I was like, oh my gosh, it's been a whole year and I'm not feeling better, you know. Now I say it to myself a little bit differently. So Barry's death was a life-changing event. My grief is always going to continue and I'll love him forever. And it's okay that it was life-changing, you know. I'm going to bring it into my life moving forward. So. That's all from me. Thank you all really, truly for coming. It's so courageous of you. And I hope that you get to light your candles and release a little bit of your grief here today. Thanks for having me.
I did want to mention that we have a grief coach card in all of your bags that has a QR code that you can connect and go to the landing page if you think that receiving texts might be helpful and supportive. So we include that in all of your bags. Thank you so much, Emma. We're so glad that you mentioned staying connected, because talking about staying connected, we really want to invite you to Sierra Donor Services Ambassador Program at some point. Maybe not now, maybe 2 years from now. But it's an incredible group of inspiring ambassadors, which include donor families, individuals waiting for a life-saving transplant, transplant recipients, living donors, and others who are really passionate about saving lives through organ, eye, and tissue donation. There is a bookmark in your bag also that talks a little bit about our ambassador program. And as a matter of fact, our next speakers are ambassadors. Please welcome Denise and Peter Mayberry. They're parents of one of our donor heroes, Grace Mayberry.
Good afternoon. I would like to begin today with letting you all know that my heart goes out to each and every one of you as we too continue to grieve. Our daughter Gracie became a donor hero 5 years ago, and to those who continue to mourn her, it only feels like yesterday. We are here today to honor our donor heroes, their families, and the countless lives that they have saved and continue to touch. We are all on our own unique journeys of grief, but we are all bonded together by the loss of our loved one. It is because of their loss and sacrifice that we are united together today. I'm so very honored to have this time today to share a little bit about our donor hero, Grace Kelly Mayberry. Growing up, Gracie was a bit of an old soul. She was introverted and yet a spirited girl who loved old music such as Elvis and Frank Sinatra, while also enjoying her SpongeBob and My Little Pony. She loved to be with her family and close friends. Gracie was so many things: artistic, musical, passionate about change and inclusivity. She was intelligent. She loved playing against her father in Jeopardy. She was loyal, loved animals, especially horses. She could also be very stubborn and had an amazing sense of humor. Gracie was 18 and in her freshman year at San Francisco State University as a political science major when she was unexpectedly taken from us. Gracie was just beginning to blossom as a young woman. She was so excited about all that she had been experiencing with the new friends that she was making at school. She became even more passionate about social issues such as the rights of the LGBTQ community and Black Lives Matter. We can only imagine where our Gracie would be on her earthly journey today at the age of 23. I would also like to share how proud she was when she received her driver's license in the mail to show her father and I the pink donor sticker on it. Little did we know at the time how significant that would become. With her warrior-like spirit, Gracie has continued to show love and compassion for others through the ultimate gift of organ donation. Knowing that Gracie continues to live on in the lives of those that she has blessed gives us some comfort. I hope to one day have the opportunity to connect with those who have been blessed with Gracie's gift and share more of her story with them and learn about their stories. We will do our part by continuing to work with Sierra Donor Services to raise awareness about the beautiful gift of organ donation. Gracie is survived by me, her mother, her father Peter, her sister Mia, her grandparents, lots of aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends who all love and continue to miss her so deeply. Again, I would like to thank you for giving me the honor of sharing our donor hero Gracie's story in this time with you all. I know that Gracie and your loved ones are here with us today and sharing their love and light with us all. Thank you.
Sierra Donor Services works with 44 hospitals and 2 transplant centers across 13 counties all over Northern California and Northern Nevada. Here to share a little bit more about the impact of our donor heroes is the Executive Director of the UC Davis Transplant Center, Melissa Blevin.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma and Denise and Peter, for sharing Gracie's story. Thank you to Sierra Donor Services for inviting me to speak at this important event. It's humbling. My name, as you heard, was Melissa Blevins. This is a humbling and reverent event for many reasons, and the reasons take on different meaning depending on who's asked. The club that you now belong to, you didn't ask to be in it. No one would, yet you did. You did on select membership to this club on what must have been the worst day of your life. Thank you for being here to honor the people in your life who gave so generously. Who am I? Why am I here? What do I represent? Well, a couple of things. I'm a daughter, a sister, an aunt, and a term that my nieces thought up when I was at the ripe old age of 30 and no husband and no babies, so they called me grand sister. That's been a while ago, but it stuck. They still call me that. I'm a registered nurse, and I've worked in organ transplant on the recipient side and on the donor side for over 2 decades. I believe in this work. I'm a living kidney donor. My right kidney lives in a different time zone and zip code and state. My recipient, Risa, and I, we celebrated our 14th kidneyversary, that's what we call it, in June this year. Yep. Thank you. We both continue to do well, despite my lifelong affinity for Southeastern cuisine and my mama's biscuits and gravy. I've been at the bedside of patients who woke up after transplant with a renewed vigor for life. This moment, it's like no other. I get tired, yes, I get tired, but I never get tired of that. I never get tired of watching that miracle happen. I've also been at the bedside of patients who died waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. And this moment, too, is like no other. It's heartbreaking because it could have been avoided if there were enough organs to meet the demand. For the past 8 years, I've served as the executive director at UC Davis Transplant Center. Why I'm here is to give voice to the transplant recipients whose lives were changed for the better because of the generosity of your loved ones. There are some life experiences that cannot be adequately described in words. No combination works. There is unspeakable grief as you are experiencing, as you continue on your grief journey. Those everyday things like, oh, I can't wait to share, this with, and then remembering there's a hole. On the other side of that, there's endless gratitude from organ and tissue transplant recipients and their family members as they experience moments that would have otherwise been missed, whether a birthday or the ability to walk again from transplanted tissue. Life from loss, that's what I'm here to represent. I have no answers. I have no explanation for why things happen the way they do. What I do have to offer is gratitude. On behalf of the recipients who are alive and those whose lives are dramatically improved because of your loved one, thank you. I like to imagine a special designated well where all of the endless gratitude from organ and tissue recipients and goodwill from their family members, where it's collected and stored. And drawing from this well, the special designated well, is granted to those who grieve the loss of someone who donated life, like you here today. So when the dark moments come and grief eclipses your view, draw from this special designated well of gratitude and goodwill. Drink deep. It exists because of the people that we are here to remember, your loved ones who we honor and who we will never forget. Thank you.
I've been with Sierra Donor Services a fairly short period of time, but one thing I've already learned is that there's a profound sense of gratitude that recipients share for every single person who says yes to organ and tissue donation. We've got 3 people with us here this afternoon that can talk about that far better than I can. Please help me welcome Diana Ferreira, Stephen Kellett, and Dwayne Wilson.
So this is Stephen Kellett, my brother, and my name is Diana Ferreira. I am a hospital development coordinator with Sierra Donor Services. I would like to share Stephen's story with you today because it is an incredible story. Stephen was born with Down syndrome, and from the moment he entered this world, he faced significant challenges. He was immediately transferred to the NICU after birth due to serious congenital heart defects. Our family was told that Stephen needed a very complicated procedure to fix his heart and give him a chance at life. The uncertainty and fear my family felt during those early days was overwhelming. I truly don't know how my parents did it. Sort of the older I get, the more I question how they just kept going. And I admire them for their strength during that time. After a few months in the NICU, Stephen stabilized and we brought him home. For 6 months, we monitored his health closely, always on the lookout for signs of heart failure. The plan was to see how big he could get because it would make his heart procedure that much easier if his heart grew a little larger. It was a period filled with a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. Stephen started showing signs that his heart could no longer support his body at 6 months of age, and he received his life-saving surgery at Lucile Salter Packard Children's Hospital at Stanford. The complexity of his heart condition was staggering. His aorta and pulmonary artery were on the wrong sides. He had no septum in the middle of his heart, and he needed donor valves to replace his non-functional ones. The procedure lasted 8 long hours, and I remember the surgeon telling us that his heart was the size of a walnut. This year, Stephen turned 30. My work partner, Sean, knows I've been emotional about that this year because it just has such an impact. Stephen is a source of joy and inspiration to everyone that knows him. He has a dedication to Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars, which are now the same company, which is convenient, right? And he is an active member of his adult Down syndrome club. He is an incredible abstract artist, and about a year ago, one of his friends at the Down syndrome club told him that she had a crush on him, and now she's his girlfriend. And her name is Charlotte, and they love to go on dates. They go to the movies, the mall, and Taco Bell. A woman after my own heart. Stephen's laugh is the most infectious sound I've ever heard. We call it a cherub laugh. If you get to hear it, it's incredible. I love your laugh, buddy. Is that embarrassing? And he just lights up a room. He is an all-around cool guy, and that's what they say at the Down Syndrome Center. They always talk about how cool he is. And he's fashionable, as you can see, as well. Our family is eternally grateful to the family of his valve donor, who made the selfless decision to donate their precious baby's heart valves. Their generosity gave Stephen a chance at life, and we're forever and ever indebted to them. We know the gravity of their decision because we faced losing Stephen ourselves. Every single day, we remain profoundly grateful for Stephen's donor. Stephen is known for his hugs, and in each hug, he honors the precious gift of life that he was given that has allowed him to lead the life he lives. He's looking at me like, why are you crying? Stephen's life is a shining example of how a family's act of selflessness can transform lives and inspire hope. Now, I'd like to give Stephen a moment to share a few words with you. And this is what he would want to say to his donor and their family. The microphone. Thank you. Okay. A little closer. Okay, a little louder. Thank you for helping me, and thank you for helping our family. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, my name's Dwayne Wilson, and I kind of want to go with Stephen and go to Taco Bell now. Yeah, I also want to thank Sierra Donor Services, and just a humbling experience to be able to share a brief part of my story with you all. I had a heart transplant 3 years ago, and standing before you all today is humbling. Just try not to do that. I was hoping to make you guys laugh, not cry. But at least it's a humbling experience for me, and to stand here before you all. I was diagnosed at an early age, at 17, with a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and I spent the next 40 years dealing with all the issues of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, including how to say it. So it was a lot of different things from, I can remember days where just walking up to get up on a stage like this would have been a workout. And I think I actually spent some time here at UC Davis in the cardiology department. My cardiologist and my heart failure specialist were on speed dial. I spent a lot of time before my diagnosis. I was in high school and up to that point, played a lot of sports, did pretty good, and all of that was kind of taken away with the diagnosis that I had. And with that, I think it was just something that I found ways to do what I could each day for 40-some years before my transplant. My transplant was at Stanford on April 18th of 2021. So I spent most of COVID during that period trying to stay away from everybody and trying to juggle what was upcoming, and that was a heart transplant. And one of the biggest things that I had to deal with and that I thought about and still do was my donor, my donor family. And I think it was, for me, my doctors, my family, my friends, we had plenty of time. We planned this. We planned what was going to happen. We were, planning, where I was going to stay. We were going to plan who was going to be with me. We planned, everything. We didn't know where that heart was coming from. My donor, that donor family didn't know what was about to happen. And so even for me to this day, it's 3 years removed, but I think for me, you know, for that year, you know, or that day when you had your transplant. You know, my family, friends want to do that, and it's, which I do appreciate, but at the same time, it's, the grieving for me is tough on those days. Christmas, you know, all those holidays, it's just thinking about that donor family. And I just want you all to know that I'm very thankful for what you've done, what your loved one has done, and what you've allowed to happen for people like me. One story I will tell you, in Stanford, one, when you go there, those people are very smart. So walking in there, it was, and they also come at you in groups. So it's never one person walks in a room, it's 9. So one day after it was about 3 days after my transplant, they came in, and I also had a pacemaker, defibrillator pacemaker that I had for years. So that was taken out. So now I have a brand new heart, and but still I haven't felt this. They have an external pacemaker that's basically running until that heart gets used to my body, and you know, both of us, we're getting used to this new, you know, they're getting used to the body, I'm getting used to this heart. So the pacemaker is running things. So the 9 doctors came in and they turned it down. They were saying, we're going to turn off that pacemaker, you're going to feel your heart for the first time. And they did that. And for me, all those years, I never felt that. And in that moment, for me, it was like, first of all, I felt like someone had kicked the bed, because it just kicked in, and it was beating, and I had never felt that. And feeling that was just an amazing situation, or amazing moment for me, something that I always like to talk about. And believe me, I've gotten a lot better talking about it. Usually I'm on the floor already crying and losing my mind, but at least I'm able to get through this. But yeah, so that was just an amazing moment for me. And I liken it to the fact where I always tell everybody that it was, for me, you know, getting that transplant at that age, you know, it's also where you're aging, so everything's changing anyway. So I don't know if I was, you know, forgetting things because I lost my heart, or just because I was aging, or I didn't understand what was going on. But a lot of times, what was happening when I felt that heartbeat, I always tell everybody, it was like they put a Ferrari in a Pinto station wagon, and basically for the next year afterwards, I was so excited to have this. I did everything without limitations finally. And at one point I broke my finger, fell down, I hurt my shoulder, so I couldn't lift my arm up. I did get gout, so my feet hurt, but I just couldn't stop. It just felt so great having that heart. And I always say that they put that Ferrari in this Pinto station wagon, and it's blowing the doors off every day. And so basically, thank you. For all of you that have lost a loved one, for all of you that have allowed people like me, people like Stephen, to enjoy, you know, this life that I'm able to enjoy now, there's nothing else we can say. Thank you.
All right. Michael Clay, Director of Family Services, Sierra Donor Services. One of the beautiful things about this work that we do is definitely a lifestyle for the employees and our heroes at Sierra Donor Services. And there's 2 things that I look forward to every day, is interacting with just and hearing some of the amazing stories from you all. And number 2 is supporting our donor family service coordinators. And these are people that they work 24-hour shifts, 7 days a week. They're on call, very similar to an EMS role. When the phone rings, they know that someone is having a crisis, potentially the worst day of their life. takes a special kind of person to do this kind of work. Some of them are social workers. Some of them are clinicians. Some of them are former basketball coaches. Some of them are surgeons. Some of them are just tremendous human beings you meet with tremendous life experience. But ultimately, they all kind of embody four things. They show up big. The first thing, they show up with light. They bring light into these dark, sad, horrible scenarios and help potential donor families like some of you all see the next step, see a bigger picture, see a brighter day. They show up with love. A lot of times in these situations, we're faced with some tremendous energy, tremendous barriers, tremendous situations that just are not comfortable for anyone, and they show up with the love. Lastly, they show up with life. As one of their roles here is to advocate for you, but also advocating for those waiting for the precious gift. And some of them have shared some amazing stories today. But one thing is they're also punctuation specialists. And what I mean by that is, think of your loved one today. Without donation, without this amazing gift that you all have given, they would have had just a period behind their name. Our donor family services folks allow for there to be a comma and give you all the opportunity for them to continue to live on, continue for their stories to be told. The comma, and yes, they help save and impact lives through organ and tissue donor services. So without further ado, I get to introduce you to one of those amazing human beings, Bree Stone. Thank you.
So glad it's short enough. Hi, my name is Bree. As Michael said, I'm one of the family care coordinators with Sierra Donor Services. I have the honor of serving our donor families. Thank you all for being here today to honor all of our donor heroes. When I look into this room, one word comes to mind: heroism. Heroism is often portrayed as grand, larger-than-life acts of courage we see in stories of bravery and those who face danger to protect others. But there's another kind of heroism, one that is quieter, less visible, but not less powerful. It is the heroism of an organ donor, whose generosity extends beyond their life to touch the lives of others in the most profound way possible. Today we stand before you with a heart overflowing with gratitude, gratitude that words alone cannot adequately express. For within the depths of your loss, your family made a decision that transcended grief and illuminated the path of hope for others. Your selfless act has touched lives in ways you may never fully comprehend. Through your generosity, you have granted the most precious gift, the gift of life, to individuals who were teetering on the brink of despair. In the face of unimaginable sorrow, you chose compassion. You chose to transform tragedy into triumph, to sow seeds of healing amidst the barren fields of grief. Your courage, your strength, and your unwavering empathy serve as a beacon of inspiration to us all. Know that your loved one's legacy lives on, not only in the memories you all hold dear, but in the beating hearts, the breathing lungs, the restored bodies, and the renewed spirits of those who have received the gift of life. They walk this earth today because of your profound act of kindness. Though mere words may never fully convey the depth of our gratitude, please accept our humble thanks. Thank you for choosing love over despair, for choosing generosity over grief, and for reminding us all of the boundless capacity of the human spirit to shine even in the darkest times. May you find solace in knowing that your loved one's legacy endures. This is a testament to the beauty of humanity and the power of your family's extraordinary act of generosity. With heartfelt appreciation, Sierra Donor Services.
I'd
like to again acknowledge the families that were here today. And you may feel a lot tugging at your heart right now, but maybe we can share just a moment of silence for each of your loved ones. Thank you. Some of the things that you've heard today were very inspiring and also very heartwarming. And I'd just like to express a little bit myself about grief. I've been a chaplain for 10 years, a first responder chaplain, which means that I go into homes, unfortunately, on someone's worst day and tell them the news that their loved one has died. It's difficult, but it's also an honor and a privilege to be with them during that very sensitive time in their life. And it's also heartwarming in that at some point they're able to do what you've done, to be a donor family, or to find a way to honor their loved one. Grief is very universal. Most of us in this room, most of us on earth, won't ever be the president of a country, won't ever write a book, won't ever have a Grammy award-winning song, all of those kinds of things that we think are important. But every single person will experience grief. Every single person. Even you'll know that some of our pets feel grief when they are separated from the people they love. And so grief is very universal. It's also something that you can use to your benefit, and that is because you can, even though you will not understand maybe someone else's grief and you can't say, I know exactly how you feel, you will be able to empathize with people who are going through a loss. And a loss doesn't always just mean the death of a loved one. Sometimes it can mean other things such as divorce, losing a job. It's not nearly as profound as losing a loved one, but everyone will experience that at some point. So you're able, because of that, to help someone in the future, not only the way you helped with your donation of your loved one, but also just with your shared grief, is to be able to help someone else in need. Probably some of you have seen this, and you can look it up on the internet. There's something called the 12 Freedoms of Grief. And it's 12 little paragraphs, short paragraphs, that gives you permission to grieve, that gives you that opportunity not only to experience what you're going through, but also to have the freedom to experience it in the way that is right for you. There is no wrong way to grieve. And so I encourage you to find ways to express your grief, and most of all, to continue to honor your loved one. Please welcome Davin Jones, 12-year-old liver recipient, reading a poem, My Final Gift.
My final gift. It is now time for me to move on into the dusk, but also the dawn. I will remain as morning comes, as I left behind a gift for someone. So other may walk, may talk, may, but their life was locked. I offered a key. I am a donor to someone in need. My final gift, my final need.
Many of you will recall meeting someone in your life and you met them and you felt like you've known them for your entire lives. These two people are two of those people for me. Please help me welcome Jess and Teresa Charez. They've got a beautiful story to share.
First of all, I want to say, give you my grievances. I'm in the same boat you guys are in. Mine's happened to be over 20 years ago. We had a son, his name is Joe, young police officer for Sacramento for only 5.5 months. The year 2000, it was going to be Thanksgiving time, and that was the first year we couldn't spend Thanksgiving together. Too many things were happening in our lives that our family kind of went in different directions. But I told my family that we'll have a late Thanksgiving dinner the following day. And before I tell you the story about Joe a little bit, biggest reason why he became a police officer. He only had about 2 weeks left in the academy when Joe came up to me and said, Dad, he goes, if anything ever happened to me out in the street, he goes, I want to donate my organs. And you know, I looked him right in the eye, and I says, nope, it's not going to happen. He says, Dad, he goes, do you realize you could have an open casket? I said, nope, it's not going to happen. And then he turned around and said something like, Dad, do you realize the Hispanics, the African Americans, and the Asians were the 3 groups of people that need the organs the most, and we help the least? And I said, nope, it's not going to happen. Then he turned around, and I call it using his wild card on his dad. He says, Dad, I spoke to Mom. And Mom said it was okay. I just shook my head and I wanted to backhand him. But I told him, I said, son, as much as I love you and your 2 brothers, the answer is no. I says, you guys are 49%, I'm 51%. So the answer is no. Well, we left it at that. My son became a police officer. He was out in the street in Sacramento, and there were a couple of guys still in the car, and him and his partner stopped these guys. And as my son, as our son, I said, Dad, well, as he was putting on the handcuffs, he collapsed. And I believe that he died right then and there. This happened on Thanksgiving Day. It happened the day after Thanksgiving. The day after Thanksgiving, we were having our late Thanksgiving dinner. Our son normally gets off work at 5 o'clock. So my wife planned to have the turkey done by 5. And so here it comes 5 o'clock and the phone rings. My wife's taking out the turkey out of the oven. Right next to the counter was a wall phone. And at 5:05, the phone rings. Now, all the things I want to tell you later in a few minutes becomes a fog to me. When that phone rang, my wife answers the phone with a very sweet voice, because our son every day calls his mama up at 5 o'clock and always asks her, is there anything that he could pick up from the store, or is there anything that he can do for her on the way home? And when the phone rang, my wife was just about ready to carve the turkey, and all of a sudden, she answers the phone, and with a sweet voice, she says, hello. And from hello, it went to, no, not Joe. Now I'm thinking to myself, who in the world's calling up my home at this time of the day, ruining our Thanksgiving? So I go stomping across the room. All our family's there, my boys and their family, getting ready to have a Thanksgiving dinner. So I go stomping across the room and I snag the phone from my wife. And with a mean voice, I said, "Who is this?" And all of a sudden the voice comes on and says, "This is the chief of police." Now, when he said it was the chief of police, my mind blanked out. I'm thinking to myself, why is the chief of police calling me up on a beautiful day like this? He says, "I want to let you know that your son went down." Now, I started to sound like my wife. I said, no. See, the reason why I said no is because my son was a health nut. He ate properly, he exercised, he was in the biking, he was in the karate, he was in the boxing, so he kept himself physically fit. So I couldn't imagine my son going down. The chief says that he's going to send a squad car to our home to get us to the hospital. I says, "No, you aren't." Click. I hung up a phone on him. I didn't even ask him which hospital he was in. I told the rest of the family, "You guys go ahead, finish carving up the turkey, have your Thanksgiving dinner. Mom and I are going to take off and go see what happened to your little brother." He was 24 years old. So I started escorting my wife out the door, and I remember as I was putting her in the car, my heart started beating so hard and so fast. All I had in my mind is I wanted to see my son Joe. I raced down to the hospital, ran through stop signs, stop lights, and I went down to UC Davis. It just happened to be the biggest hospital in Sacramento, and I know that they did trauma center. So as I get there to the hospital, I'm speeding, and I come into the parking lot, and I slam on my brakes, and I come in sliding, and I see 50 to 100 police officers out there waiting for us. At that time, I knew something seriously happened to my son, our son. So when my car came to a stop, you see that all the police officers, they scattered because I almost hit them. Came in sideways. The chief of police opened up the car door for my wife and starts escorting her in. Now me, I started freaking. My heart was beating so fast, it felt like it was going to come out of my chest. And all I had in my mind is I wanted to see my son Joe. But I forgot how to open up the door. Thank God I had my foot on the brake. So I told myself, well, go out the window. I looked around. I couldn't figure out how to roll down the window. So my heart is really starting to beat harder and faster. So I decided, well, you know what? I'll just kick out the door or bust the window. So I kind of leaned back. I'm getting ready to kick out the door. And one of the police officers seen the scared look on my face, and he went on over there and he opened the car door. Now, when he opened the car door, right away he jumped in. And I'm thinking to myself, what is this guy doing? Well, he was between me and the steering wheel. He put my car in park and turned off the ignition. After he did that, he started backing out a little bit, but it wasn't fast enough for me. So I kind of gave him a little push. And as he was out of my way, I tried to get out of the car, but I couldn't. I couldn't figure out how to undo my seatbelt. Well, he comes back in the car, he undoes the seatbelt for me. By this time, I'm looking for my wife and where she's at. And all the police officers are directing me to a little office. My wife was in there just bawling like a little baby. And I heard the doctors telling my wife that we believe your son is brain dead. We believe he only has 30% chance of making it. At that time, I couldn't think of my son coming out of, looks like in a coma he was in, that he was going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life. They said in the year 2000 that they're going to run more tests. They may have to drill holes in his head or cut off the top of the skull for the brain can swell some more and finish swelling. As we're there in the hospital waiting, there were probably between 100 to 200 people, police officers. It was all over the news. His high school buddies showed up, his college buddies. A lot of our relatives from out of town showed up. And all I remember is I wanted to see my son. I went up to where my son was at, and first thing I did is I put my head on his chest. He looked like he was just sleeping. When I go back downstairs, all these people are there waiting for us. And Sacramento newspapers and the news, they made a big deal out of it, out of my son's death. And I couldn't understand why. Well, the reason why is because he was Hispanic. The last Hispanic that donated before my son in the year 2000 was in 1990, 10 years. So I'm proud of my son for coming to me and telling me what he wanted done. But as we waited, as the doctors were going to do more tests, I knew a day and a half, 2 days later, that they were going to give us the update from 30% chance of making it to what they can do. My wife didn't know, but I slipped off and I went to a little room in the hospital. My wife probably thought I was going to the restroom. And I prayed these simple little words. I said, God, what do I do? I told my son no, that he couldn't donate. I said, what do I do? By me saying that, God gave me an answer right then and there. He told me if I honored my son, I'd be honoring him. So I knew I had to change my mind. So I come out of this prayer closet, looking for my wife. And everybody tells me that they called her back in with the rest of my boys and their family to give us the update. Now, as I walked into the room, my wife is sitting in the very back with her head down on her lap, bawling like a little baby. I wanted to get to her and comfort her. As I'm walking across the room, the doctor, Sarah Donor Services was there, Tim. I call him the caretaker. He was there with the doctor, and they're saying, are you willing to donate your son's organs? Because he's down from 30% down to 1%. And as a proud father, I stood there and I stopped and I looked at the doctors and Tim, eye to eye, with my chest out, and I said, yes. And when he said yes, when I said yes, the doctor says, are you willing to donate his heart? Yes. His lungs? Yes. His pancreas? Yes. His lower intestines? Yes. His kidneys? Yes. His liver? Yes. I started walking to my wife to comfort her, and she barely had enough strength to lift up her head. But when she lifted up her head, the tears were coming down her cheek. As I'm getting ready to comfort her, she's trying to tell me something, but the words wouldn't come out. But I could read her lips. And she said, thank you for honoring our son. You've heard of the recipients today, and they tell you how they got a second chance of life, which they did. But you know what, though? God gave me the second chance of life to change my mind and honor my son and honor God. By me doing so, our son was able to save 4 lives the day he passed. I'm so blessed to be here today. I thank Sarah Donor Services for allowing me to speak to you guys. The best thing I can tell you guys that's working for me is get involved with Sierra Donors and go out and do public speaking. Your loved one's story is as important as mine, and people need to know about our loved ones. So get out there and honor your loved ones. God bless you guys, and I thank you very much from out of my heart.
Before we close, I'd like to offer a blessing, if you'd like to bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the privilege of being together today. We are truly grateful for your comfort and love. We are blessed by what we have seen and heard today, and we pray these feelings will stay with us as we travel home in safety. Please attend to those whose hearts are still broken and bruised with your healing grace and continued comfort. Please let us keep the memories of the ones we have lost going as we continue to honor them always. In your holiness and grace, amen.
We'd like to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon. Although the ceremony today may be over, we want to encourage you to check out a few different ways of staying connected. We've heard about a few of them today. We've got a Facebook group for donor families. Please check that out and get engaged there. There's a QR code on the back of your program. So there on your table, check out that QR code, and there's a link to subscribe to our new community newsletter. Until about 6 months ago, that was an ambassador newsletter. We retailored that to include everybody in the community, thanks to Angelica Williams right up front. Beautiful young lady in the blue shirt right there has redone that, and we'd be happy if you guys subscribe to that newsletter. We also want you to sign up to get more information about the ambassador program. Please do that as well. We thank you for participating in the Locks of Legacy ceremony today, and we hope to continue honoring your loved ones. It's been a beautiful afternoon for me, actually. We're going to continue to keep those memories going through our words, our work, and our actions. We'd also like to thank all of the speakers today who spoke, who took time out. Please, another round of applause for everyone who spoke today. Lastly, we've got those beautiful table settings, centerpieces on your table, and we don't want to cause a riot as we walk out of here, but we're going to give those away. Maybe at each table, we decided maybe the best way is the person at the table that traveled the furthest to come out today gets to have that if you can't decide at each table, but please take the centerpieces with you. My name again, Michael Coleman. I'm Director of External Affairs for Sierra Donor Services. I want to thank you. Have a beautiful, beautiful afternoon and beautiful rest of your day. Thanks.